Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Overseas Home and Portugal Property Guides. My name is Christopher Nye, and I'm the senior editor, helping customers relocate and buy abroad for pretty much 20 years via online guides, newsletters, property mailers, and working directly with trusted experts to support you with your purchase, which brings us to our webinar today. Three experts needed to safely and securely. It's great to have you with us today, whether you're here live or you're catching up on demand. If you are here live, put it in the chat box on the right hand side, and I will get our panel to answer them. If we don't have time to answer them, then we will pass the questions on to Al, and they will get back to you as soon as possible after the event. Our goal always is to help you buy safely in Portugal. So, and I'm joined by George, who's a trader at Smart Currency Exchange, David Rowett from Olive Homes, and Sophia, who is a lawyer at Matt Law. So what I would like to do is, Sophia Vicente, I should have said. We're on first name terms here. So what I would like to do is just get each of you just to say hi and give a brief introduction to the company, and then we'll get on to the proper Q&A after that. So George, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So yeah, my name's George, obviously here representing Smart Currency. So a bit about me, I'm one of the senior traders on the account management team here. So been with Smart and team for just over 3 years now, and in the currency industry as a whole for coming up to 10. A bit of background on Smart. So we are, I suppose, clues in the title, a foreign exchange specialist. So we focus primarily on the property market. So found ourselves a niche there. Been in the market for coming up to 20 years now. And over that time have helped, got to be now in excess of 50,000 people in obviously very similar situations to yourselves, you know, helping transfer money internationally to ultimately buy and sell property. Obviously not all we do, we can and do help with, I suppose, anything currency related, but just seem to have found ourselves a niche in the property market over the last 20 years. So yeah, that's our I suppose primary focus. The aim here is to ultimately help clients such as yourselves keep buying costs low and within I suppose a sensible predefined budget. And the way we do that is through essentially effective currency risk management. So currency markets, as I suppose I'm sure you're aware, and with any financial market, are obviously a very volatile place. So you've been watching them over the last few months as your plans start to hopefully pick up and progress. You know, you may well have noticed a big change in property values, and that's obviously a direct result of the ever-changing currency market, so pound to euro exchange rate in this instance. So my job as one of the traders here, and obviously our job as a whole, is to work with you individually, make sure that the timing of your transaction is, I suppose, the best for you and important in line with your risk appetite. And yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
Okay, I've got a problem with my internet, it seems, although I have super fast, so I don't know what's happening. So I've just turned off my camera in the hope that it speeds up a bit. David, tell us about yourself and Olive Homes.
Okay, myself, well, I've been in Portugal nearly 20 years now. I've been selling properties in all that period of time, self-employed for the last 15 years. So been running my company. I've sold property throughout the whole of Portugal, Porto, Lisbon, and the Algarve, which is where I'm based now. As a company, we like to hold clients' hands through all of the process. It's not like being an estate agent in the UK where somebody wants to have a property near a school and they see the property and that's that. When we meet a client, we give a complete service, and that would include showing the clients the areas, because even though the Algarve, the Algarve has the same climate and the same people, food, so it's all very fantastic. But individual areas can be quite different in terms of what people want. So we're happy to meet people and discuss the areas, show them Albufeira, show them Villamora, Tavira, and try to decide what's best for them as a location. Then obviously we've got a complete variety of properties on our books, which we can show you. We work with all the other agents as well. So if you find something online that's not through us, we can speak to them and not a problem. We can show that property to you. We can introduce you to all the necessary people you need to speak to along the way. So lawyers, foreign exchange, as you're meeting today. Also builders or furniture companies and things like that. So it's a complete package. And then once you're sort of moving in, then we'll help open a bank account, help you get a mortgage, and make sure the utilities are connected, bank account. So we do absolutely everything. Olive Homes is based in Central Algarve. We mainly specialize in the Algarve, but if people have any questions about all of Portugal, I can help. I've got good contacts everywhere. And basically we have a team of 10. So most of the time I'm sort of behind the scenes running everything. And my fantastic team are out with clients, and I try to see the clients at the start and the end, make sure they're happy with everything. We have fantastic testimonials on our website with pictures of happy clients, not just a name and a sentence that purports that they were happy with us, but real genuine people. And we'd be happy to help anybody that's listening today.
Okay, fantastic. I've still got problems with my internet, I'm afraid. But Sophia, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and Matt Law.
So I'm Sophia. I'm an associate lawyer at Matlaw. At Matlaw, we are specialized in assisting our clients with relocation processes and real estate, of course. So we provide a full scope of services to our clients, since register in as a non-resident in Portugal, from all the contract sides and legal aspects of buying a property, analyzing documents, provide contacts for surveyors or anything that might be needed, and deal with completion and post-completion matters, make all payments and all signatures on behalf of the clients, according with the instructions received, of course. And we try to advise our clients the best way we can, either from the legal point of view or the urban part of the process regarding city councils and sometimes the construction itself. So we are free to advise anyone here.
Okay, thank you. Right, so let's get on to some questions for George and for Smart Currency Exchange. George, we're going to take people from the very first sort of plans when they are planning their property purchase in Portugal. Now, they won't quite get the rate that's on the news, will they? So tell me how that works.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, very, very common misconception and question that we have here. So yeah, if you're following the exchange rates, I suppose, off Google and obviously what you're seeing online, that is very often showing you what's known as the interbank exchange rate. So I often phrase it as the wholesale rate. Although the true level of where the market is, it's essentially the rate that's held for the banks. So the banks are trading trillions between each other each day, and that sets where so the global market is. From there, you've got the tourist rate, which if anyone's ever bought currency before at the airports or a bureau de change, you would have probably got the tourist rate, which is right down the bottom. You'll always notice that's easily 3, 4, 5%, maybe more off of what you're seeing on Google. So typically for lower value cash transactions. And then as a commercial buyer, you'll be what I would call the commercial rate, which is somewhere in between. So obviously the exact rate you get will depend on, I suppose, two factors. One being your volume.
Excellent.
So how much you're buying. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, so I was saying that, so obviously your rate is independent on volume and market volatility, but you're somewhere in between.
I should carry on talking, George.
Well, I can't hear a thing at the moment. We're just trying to we're just trying to sort out the technical problems at my end. But tell us about the basic process and the options available to us. For example, I understand there's a spot contract, but there's also a forward contract. So what are the differences?
Yeah, sure. So two very, very popular contracts. The difference between the two, I suppose, with a spot contract, the clues in the title, you're essentially buying currency on the spot. And a forward contract is essentially reserving currency for a forward date or a future date. So main difference between the two is the settlement terms of those. So with a spot contract, you're buying on the spot, so you're expected to pay for, in this instance, let's say you're buying euros for Portugal, you'd be expected to pay for your euros usually within a couple of days. So the main assumption there would be that you had the money available, so you're in a fortunate position to be a cash buyer. And with a forward contract, the difference is that you're still buying euros today, but you can defer the payment. So you don't essentially have to pay for them until you need them. So I'd say with property, your forward contract is usually the preferred option for a few reasons. One being, obviously, some people either don't have the money available right now, so perhaps they need to sell assets in the UK or elsewhere. They've got property to sell, they've got investments that they need to liquidate, but they still want to manage their currency and buy the euros. So that might suit them. Or you may have the cash available, but you may want to leave it in your own account, earn a bit of interest, and obviously pay for them when you need them. So that's the main difference. It's in the settlement terms.
Okay, and how early before the purchase can I book a forward contract?
Yeah, so a forward contract, I would say, typically can have a maximum duration of 12 months. So you can book a forward contract 12 months out. I would typically guide my clients to look at forward contracts once they've got an offer accepted or are heading out on what I would call a serious viewing trip. So perhaps they're then, they've got a short list of properties that they're pretty keen to offer on. The reason I say that is because we can then work with specifics, right? We then know that you're going to fix your exchange rate for this amount of time, 2, 3, 4 months, however long you think you need. And importantly, we're then working with a very specific euro figure that goes in line with your offer. But you can go as long as 12 months out.
Okay. Now, if I've been banking with my bank for the last 30 years, why would I not go with them?
Yeah, it's a very, very common question.
Just about find a branch on the high street. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, branches are disappearing, which I suppose leads perfectly onto the answer, which is the level of service with your bank. So I'd say by far the most popular question we get, and I typically break it down into two factors. So the first factor that often piques most people's interest is cost. So when you use your traditional high street bank, they have various charges, and importantly, the exchange rates that they use, they're just not competitive in today's market. They may well have been 20, 30, 40 years ago. They're just not today. So when you're using a specialist such as Smart Currency, the exchange rate that we can obtain from our buying power, we're buying billions of pounds a year, so we get very competitive rates. We can pass that on to clients. So cost is a big one. We can save you, often thousands of pounds. And two, you've got, I suppose, the account management aspect of your transaction as well. When you're dealing with the bank, their service is very much, this is your rate, take it or leave it. Not particularly helpful if you're wanting to do a transaction of multiple six figures or of a high value. So you need the appropriate support and guidance in terms of timing your exchange rate, having different products. Going back to what I was talking about there with forward contracts, your banks don't offer those. So I'd say those are your two differentials.
Hello, everyone.
I'm going to pass over to my colleague Patty, as my internet seems to have a problem.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that Chris is having some troubles with his internet, but I will just jump in and hopefully we can get that webinar going without any more interruptions. So George, let me continue with the questions.
Sure.
So just as a buyer, how do I know that exchanging the currency with you is actually safe?
Yeah. So very, very fair question. Again, quite a popular question. When people steer away from the banks, they often assume the banks obviously are the most secure. So to answer, it's very simple. We are one of a small number of companies outside of the banking system to receive full authorization as a payment institution from the Financial Conduct Authority, so the FCA. So they're the regulatory body of the financial services industry here in the UK. So we hold full authorization from them. What that essentially means, and what we have to abide by under that authorization, is we have to hold client funds and money in segregated client accounts. So what it means is that client funds are held separate from Smart Currency's operating accounts. It's not sat in our bank account. We can't go and have a bit of lunch, have a party. It's held in a ring-fenced account for each individual client. So it means that at all times, client money is secure and protected. And importantly, there is no cap on that. So full funds are protected at all times under that authorization.
Well, you convinced me, I think, with that. If you can't have parties with that money, that is, I think that definitely convinces me that it's all safe. So I think for me personally, it would be kind of easier to think I can just use Revolut or bank to exchange currency. Why should I use Smart instead?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to what I was discussing with forward contracts, things like that. So when you use your bank, you use some of these digital neobanks nowadays. So Revolut being obviously I suppose one of the bigger ones. Your choice is very limited. So again, the only option you have with both of those is your spot contract, which is your buy now, take it or leave it. So there's a few assumptions. It's, again, you have to have the money available to be able to use both of those. And two, you almost have to wait until closer to the time. You can't really be proactive in it. And you're going it alone. You can't ring your bank. I mean, best of luck ringing the bank nowadays. You'll probably be on the wait line for hours, but you can't ring your bank. You can't ring Revolut or some of these online providers to ask, simple question. Is it a good time to buy euros? What's happening in the market? Is it up, down, sideways? What's going on? Which is obviously an important aspect to buying a lot of euros. We're not dealing with small amounts here, so you need appropriate guidance, and you need someone who can, I suppose, offer you a strategy, which is where we really differentiate.
For sure. Okay, great. Thank you so much, George. I'll move on to David and ask him some questions regarding the property market nowadays. I think our viewers would probably like to know a bit more about that. So, David, could you tell me what's the market like nowadays and what's popular right now? Is it mainly country homes, apartments, or new builds?
So we're, the market's been extremely busy over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. Post-COVID, it went berserk, and people obviously had made up their mind for a better quality of life, or decided to make a decision and get the holiday home of their dreams. So the last sort of 2.5 years has been manic. I would say this year now where it's not so crazy as the previous 2 years, so it's a little bit quieter. But I think most of the people in the sort of real estate market out here, excuse me, are actually happy about that, because it was really quite crazy and uncontrollable. People were, having Dutch auctions for properties, 2 people interested at the same time, people being gazumped, and that's not really a nice sort of time to be involved, because you celebrate with your clients and have a glass of wine to say well done, and then a week later you're having to call them and say, would you be prepared to pay another 10,000 euros? Nobody wants to make that call. We don't like it, and it's not a nice environment to be in. So I'd say things have cooled down from that hysteria, but it's still very, very positive time to be investing in Portugal. You've still got a substantial queue of people and pent-up demand for people who want properties. As soon as we list a new property on our website and send it out to our database, then we always get several inquiries because people are really after and have been looking for a while to find a property that they will be prepared to purchase. The issues over the last sort of few years has been that the demand has exceeded supply. Well, the good news is there's a few more properties coming on our book, so that sort of allows the clients a greater choice. But again, still probably prices not going up as not increasing as much as they were over the last sort of 2 years, but they're still predicted to increase and have increased this year. So still a good time to invest. In terms of locations, well, the four main areas in the Algarve are Tavira, Vilamora, Albufeira and Lagos are sort of the most popular ones. In terms of what people want, again, a bit of everything. There's people who want villas for 2 million, 3 million, and people looking to relocate out here, digital nomads, so people who can use technology, so it doesn't matter where they work. The government are open to receiving people like that and granting them a visa. So people can relocate and move here. I've got young children at school, and so there's a lot of my clients who go to the same school as me now. So people are relocating with their families, a complete change in their lifestyles. And then you've also got people looking for, a holiday home here where they can spend sort of, 4 to 6 weeks of the year. And obviously, the massive thing that's happened over here is the North American market, with America and Canadians that have been sort of investing over here for the last few years, and they've really pushed the market as well. And they're everywhere. So when you're out and about, then you can. It's a happy environment here in the Algarve. The Portuguese have always welcomed outside investment. So now you can feel the real variety of nationalities of the different countries that have invested in Portugal. So it's all very positive. If it's something you've been thinking of doing for a long time, then there's no reason not to do it. I sometimes say to a client, what's making you not buy it? Why wouldn't you buy it? And they say, I don't know really, David, just a bit scared. Precisely. And I say, well, we all are, aren't we? Oh, let's,
These are
so that's my job, questions. Is just to make sure that you give them some reassurance.
Exactly. Yeah. These are some good questions. If you're still thinking about buying in Portugal for the last couple of years, then maybe it's time to just say yes to that. So if we're already talking about buying, what are the sort of additional costs that are coming with a property purchase in Portugal?
Okay, so maybe Sophia will speak about that in detail. So I usually, it's very easy for me because I usually say budget 10%, and it's usually less than
likewise
that, but that means I don't have to then explain. I do explain all the bits and pieces, but if you're going along in the car and you're talking, and as a rough rule of thumb right now, budget 10%, and that will cover the lawyer's fees, the cost, the buying costs for the property. It covers everything. So that basically budget 10%, and you'll be happy at the end that you get a little bit back.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So that's great. Right. Yeah. So just regarding the sort of buying process, what Olive Homes would help a property buyer with when trying to get a property in Portugal? What are the sort of services that you would provide?
Okay, so we've got to provide absolutely everything. I've been here nearly 20 years, and so I know a plumber, I know a carpenter, I know an electrician, I know the best lawyers, and the lawyers vary considerably. And Sophia represents Matlaw. I've dealt with Matlaw lots of times. I've turned up there, delivered documents. They've emailed me. I've spoke to Joanna and Sophia, and so we both have mutual clients. So pick a. So first, I'm selling Matlaw, which is great, but. So one of the services we do is obviously introducing lawyers, introducing people to everyone, because we know the people you can trust and the people who do the job. Some people want a new kitchen, some people, a big extension, painting the house. So, and a lot of the product here, as in the properties that people buy, can be a little bit tired, need a little bit of a refurbishment. Most people don't want to do that. But sometimes when there's a lack of supply, you find something in the perfect location, has the right layout. But yes, the kitchen's not up to scratch, so it's not difficult. We take them to the kitchen shop, show them the different options. This is who we deal with. So we probably spend 50% of our time running around looking after people, which we don't charge for, and we're happy to do it. And that's how we sort of probably, exceed customers' expectations. And 50% actually selling a property. We never just sell a property and say that's that. If I introduce if I introduce Smart FX or Matlaw or Simple Taste or whoever the companies are, then I take complete responsibility for it, as does my team, and we make sure that the clients are well looked after from start to finish. So basically, if a client inquires on a property on our website, or they're referred to us or something, then we normally say, okay, what's the situation? When are you looking to come out? Do you have a rough idea as a budget? Is there anything particular on our website you like right now? If not, what sort of thing are you after? Have you been to Portugal before? Do you specifically know which location you're looking for? If not, we can spend 2 or 3 days with people and show the difference between, for example, Tavira or Lagos or other places. So we really start with a funnel. It's a funnel process, and we start wherever we feel the clients are on that funnel. So if it's right at the top, then we have to start there and work out everything, and then we gradually and say, okay, is it an apartment which you can lock up and leave? Is it a villa? Do we want a big plot, small plot? And so when people inquire, we ask those questions. Then when are you coming out? We can meet people at the airport if it's easier. And we generally try and do every single thing we can to make it a wonderful experience for people. And then show the properties. We would normally show, ideally, no more than sort of 5 or 6 properties in a day. And that includes showing locations and talking about things and saying, this is a lovely restaurant just around the corner, so, and if you go too fast, it can be a bit too powerful for the clients, because they've seen so many properties, they're getting confused. So we try to slow it down. Some people say, I want to see 10. And we say, okay, we'll show you 10 then, because that's their prerogative, not a problem. So we just try and take it steady. When I'm going along in the car, I say, if you forget every single thing I tell you, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to email you everything all the way, every step of the way. Right now, we need to do this. Now we need to do that. If clients are coming over and they think they'd like a Portuguese mortgage, that's absolutely fine. The banks are very good at lending money over here, as long as everything stacks up. So yes, they'll want to see bank statements, or if you're self-employed, a set of accounts. They normally lend up to and around sort of 70% as a guideline. You may get more, you may get less, but as a general rule of thumb, that usually a bank will lend money up to 70% of the valuation. So we normally say with mortgages, if you're thinking of doing that, apply for that, so that, do that ASAP. So you've got a sort of an agreement in principle before you come out, and that puts you in a stronger position to negotiate with the owner. Because if it takes 6 weeks for a mortgage to be approved and you're negotiating on the price, it makes it more difficult for me to say, come on, please accept this offer, if we all know we've got to wait 6 weeks before we even know if they can get a mortgage. So that's the sort of number one thing to do. And then the rest really is just, we come out and we explain everything, and, and then show people around. If they like the property and they fall in love with it and they say, okay, David, what's the next step? Then basically we would then take them to Matlaw, or if they've got their own lawyer, it doesn't matter. But if they need a recommendation, we'd recommend Matlaw, take them to Matlaw, and they'd meet Sophia or Joanna or one of the other members of the team. And then we'd ask them to put a reservation down on the property, usually around €6,000. The reservation is totally refundable. So if the client calls me up in the morning and says, I can't sleep, then I say, okay, fine, have the money back then. It's never happened actually to me. That's nice. But but if they want to, that's fine. There's nothing scary about this process. To be honest, a lot of people say it's easier than back home. So they put down €6,000. Then they've met Sophia, for example, they put down €6,000. Sophia speaks to the vendor. Yes, they've come here. They're serious. They're not messing around. We're now acting on their behalf. We've got their reservation. Then the vendor, is a gentleman's agreement a little bit at that time. So the vendor then takes the property off the market, and then we start to rush to do the work that Sophia then does to make sure the property is legal and compliant and everything. At that stage, then my job sort of goes quite a little bit then. Then we go through to the next steps, and then we get back involved again to say, right, is there anything you'd like to do around the property? Do you want it painted? Do you want anything done? But yeah, so there's nothing to fear about buying a property in Portugal. If you have the right person and the right people around you who give you good, genuine, common sense advice, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't go and buy a really old property in the middle of nowhere. You're going to renovate it and grow olives. It always goes wrong. That always goes wrong. Stick to what Portugal does best, which is buy somewhere, go out, have a croissant, have some orange juice, enjoy the wonderful weather we have here. So this weather now is fantastic this time of year, and don't let the property be a problem. That should be a piece of cake and a pleasure, because it's all about going out and enjoying yourself. So And I'm not saying that, that's not like me pitching and saying, it is just so absolutely the case. If people do decide to come here, then they, you know, they rarely go back. So, okay, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone, that's how you get to own a beautiful property in Portugal. Really easy process with David. Thank you so much, David, for that. Just a last question.
You're welcome.
A very quick one. If I was to buy a property, would you recommend I go on a viewing trip? And how many properties is worth to actually go around, and when should we go on a viewing trip? Should we view loads of properties at the same time, or just a few that are like specifically to our interests?
Okay, so just to be clear with this, so sometimes people, when they say a viewing trip, it might mean that some companies offer a sort of a subsidized flight, and they'll arrange the flight and arrange accommodation. And so you go on like an inspection trip or a viewing trip, and that's something organized by the agency. And then they take you to the hotel and then show you around and then drop you back to the hotel. And then you're not really supposed to go with any other agents. You're sort of confined to that one company. That's part of the deal, really. Some people like that. Some people don't. It's you know, I've got colleagues who do that, and they say it works well. We do not do that. But we can do everything to make it a pleasurable experience. We're happy to pick you up at the airport and take you to your hotel. So we don't do that, but we don't feel that you should be chained to us for 2 or 3 days. So what I'm going to talk about is if a client came to me and said, can I come and look at some properties and come on a viewing trip, then the best time is midweek, but that's not always convenient for people. So it might be weekends. We will work Saturdays, Sundays. It's not a problem. Sometimes we can't get in a property on a Sunday because the developer's closed it or something like that. So, or the owner doesn't want a viewing. So sometimes that can be a bit awkward, but normally we can charm our way in. It's not a problem. So in terms of how many properties to look at, if a client, when I talk to a client, or any of us talks to a client, and we sort of qualify the situation a little bit, and they say, I'd like a villa near Villamore Marina. This is my budget, south facing, not too much work to be done, 3 bedrooms. Then I'm already thinking there's probably 6 I'm going to show them, and I think 2 are really, really nice. And so that would be my plan. I don't think it necessarily needs more than that. Now, if you start to show those 6 and then they say, I don't like, well, after the first one, they're going to say, I really hate that one because, and you're like, okay, we better cross off number 5 then. You show the second one and they say, don't like that. So you think, okay, we better not show that one, you know? So it was always an evolving thing. You never can sort of write your tour in perfectly and it goes to plan. There's already a plan A, plan B, and then you've got other options in your mind. You think, that might work instead. And so the best thing is to commit 3 days, come over, and we'll go at your pace and at the correct pace, not waste your time, and try to show you everything you need to see in terms of the properties and the people concerned with who will help you along the way as well.
That sounds pretty nice. And it also doesn't sound like that bad of a thing to go to Portugal for 3 days. I wouldn't mind that at all, actually, right now, because it's quite sad in London at the moment. So. Thank you so much, David, for that.
Okay, thank you.
I will ask Sophia some questions regarding the legal side of things, because obviously that is also very important. As David mentioned, there will be a point where you will all involve a lawyer in the property buying process. So Sophia, just to kind of clarify this, do I actually need to be in Portugal when buying the property?
No, at least at Matlaw, we provide everything, every signature, every payment on behalf of the clients, either with banks, with notaries, with the counterparty, either it's a vendor or a vendor's lawyer. We can do everything. We draft powers of attorney, and then the clients only will have to sign them, either in the UK or where they're located. Go to a notary to get it notarized, and as soon as we have the original document that can be couriered or sent by DHL to our office, we are settled to do everything. Always with specific instructions, of course, but we will liaise everything through the phone and email with the client.
That sounds easy enough. So just to kind of round this up, do we have to have a Portuguese bank account to actually sort of proceed with the purchase?
No, you don't. Unless you are making a financing process through a mortgage and a bank loan, you will not be required to have a Portuguese bank account because mat law and your lawyers are entitled by the Portuguese regulations to have a client's bank account through which we will hold the funds and make all the payments on your behalf. And for example, through smart currency or other FX companies, we will liaise with the exchange currencies if needed.
Okay, perfect. So you mentioned notary being involved. Is it something that you help with to find the right person and provide those services?
We make everything, all the connections. We are in Matlo, in this case, we are located and based in Lisbon and in the Algarve, but we make deeds and all over the country, including the islands. I'm actually in a meeting in a meeting room after signing a deed in Santarém, which is not Lisbon nor Algarve. So we have lots of connections and contacts with notaries. We make the call, we find a quotation, we schedule the deeds, and we sign it, and it's all settled.
Oh, that's amazing. So what is the key paperwork and what are the sort of fees that I mentioned as well with David beforehand that will come with the property purchase?
Yeah, as David said, and I actually commented, likewise, we always say to our clients to expect around a 10% increase of the purchase price to be allocated to taxes, legal fees, notary fees, and other payments that might be required. The common taxes to be paid will be the property transfer tax and stamp duty, which are calculated from 1 to 8%, sometimes with deductions, based on the property price and the affection that you're going to have on the property. Either if you're relocating and be your permanent habitation, or if you're not relocating and it will be an investment property, the taxes will be different. And the stamp duty will have a fixed tax rate of 0.8%.
Okay, perfect. So the whole process from the idea till we've got the keys, how long would that take, more or less?
Well, from the idea, it's harder to settle because the time that you'll take with David or someone and at Olive will also depend. But I'll say that from the moment that you choose a property, come to your lawyers, and considering it as a straightforward process, it shall not take longer than 2 months to have it solved. If it has low ones or construction issues or other kinds of jobs that are required, it can take a little bit longer, but I'll say the best case scenario, 1 to 2 months.
Okay, perfect. Well, that doesn't actually sound that long. I thought it would take like a year, to be honest, personally, but that's good to know. Sophia, if making an investment in a property in Portugal, obviously some people will actually move there permanently, but some people might be considering renting it out. What sort of additional costs or additional kind of legal work comes with this situation, wanting to rent out your property?
Okay, there are two ways to renting out a property. You have short-term rentals or long-term rentals. For the long-term rentals, it then does not require any specific license. You'll be taxed over the rental income in your personal income tax in Portugal annually, and it's only regulated with the tax office. We make the registration of the contract, we issue the invoices on behalf of the clients as well, so no worries there. And then you'll have short-term rentals that right now are the applications are a little bit more strict. The villas can have new licenses without any issue before the city council. That's where you'll make the application. And for example, if we're talking apartments or flats, there are the high density areas that are not issuing new licenses. These will be the majority of the coastal areas, Porto, Algarve, Lisbon. Some councils still issue them, but there are quite a few that don't. And the city council application, it's not that long of a process. But for example, if you acquire an apartment that already have a license, even if they're not issuing new ones, you are able to transfer them to your name and be able to rent out the property anyway.
Okay, perfect. So that clears things out. When buying a property that potentially needs some form of conversion or renovation, are there any specific licenses or permissions that a person has to get to start works on the new property?
Yes. If you're buying a property, the licensing part is very important to be aware about. That's why we advise to make a due diligence on the property documents, city council licenses, because if works have been carried out that are not legal, if you decide to take the risk to buy it anyway, the city council may fine you, even if you're not the one that took the renovations carried out, but because you're the owner, so you're liable for it. If you buy it and then you want to make the changes, if that's a condition for the purchase, please be assured to make it a condition on the promissory contract and have a planning survey done on the property to make sure if you're able to buy to make the renovations or the construction that you need. And you also, the clients will always also be aware, pardon me, that city council licensing processes are taking very long to be carried out right now. We have processes that can go like from 1 year to 3 years to be concluded. So it's a very time-consuming process right now. It's a matter of considering everything and make sure that you're not making an investment that you don't want to make under the terms that are currently existing.
Okay, great. Amazing. Well, that is a
Not that
lot of
great.
information. Not that great, but that is a lot of information, for sure, quite useful. Just to all of our viewers, if you wanted to access all of this information again and get yourself a little recap, we're going to forward you a link to a video tomorrow so you can watch it again. But thank you so much, Sophia. We're going to now get on with the questions from the audience. We've got quite a few questions coming in. So one question asked by Russell, although my teammate replied, I think that might be relevant for more people. So that is a question for George. If things change, can you get out of this forward contract?
Yeah, good question. So in theory, yes, you can. Yeah. So if you think about what a forward contract is, it's essentially an agreement to buy a set amount of currency. So we would have bought you the currency, obviously at the point of I suppose agreeing. So if for whatever reason you wanted to get out of it, obviously it's very rare that people want to cancel. And I'd say the only reason really someone would cancel is if their purchase plans unfortunately fall through, so they're no longer buying the property. Yes, you can. And the way it's essentially cancelled is to convert back the currency that you've purchased, obviously at the live exchange rate at that time. So there's no definitive cost to get out of it, but obviously it depends on where the rate was at that time. So you just do a reverse. So yes, you can, and obviously you can consult your account manager at that time, and obviously they'll run you through the options.
Awesome. I've got actually another question from Russell. He is asking for an example. He's saying, for example, if I wanted to buy a £400,000 villa in 6 months' time, what would be today's rate and fees related?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one to answer because it depends on what product you went down. So different products have different rates. So it very much depends if you wanted a forward contract, if you wanted a spot contract, and obviously depends on live rates. Probably best if I perhaps took Russell's email. I could email him afterwards some examples because we very much dependent on live rate. To give you an idea, the market's trading around between 115, 116 as we speak, just to give you a rough sort of guide.
Okay, amazing. Great. So the next question is from Milan. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but the question is, could I see some typical contract for property buying? And I presume that is a question for either Sophia or David. And Milan, I think it might be it might be worth if you actually get in touch with them after the webinar, but I will let them answer.
Yeah, I won't say that there is a typical contract. There are quite simpler ones, but with all the confidential information that are stated in the contract, it's very difficult to answer. I'll say there are quite a few common clauses. Identify the parties, identify the property with its registration information, price, way to pay the price, deadline for the deed, both parties' obligations, required documents to be handed out on the deed, and then other typical ones related to real estate intervention, notification between parties like emails, addresses, etc., and jurisdiction, legislation applicable, that stuff.
Okay, well, that's...
Sorry, Sophia, I'll just add something else as well. So when you do the reservation, when you do the promissory contract, when you do get to that stage, when you're first going to commit some money, usually that's bilingual. So people it's in Portuguese and in English or French or whichever national, so that can be written in a bilingual language so that if the person who's buying can have an idea to look through. Then when you get to do the deed, and then Sophia would be present, but if Sophia was representing you at the notary insists on a separate translator to be present as well. So if Milan wasn't comfortable in English, or maybe was fluent in French or something, then normally there's a translator there as well, just to go through and explain everything what you're about to sign and commit to.
Exactly.
So you should never feel like you're in a foreign country, which you are, but you should never feel like you're in an environment where you're signing something based on trust, because I don't believe in trust anymore. I trust people and expect people to trust me, but when you come to business, trust shouldn't need to be there. It should be a pleasant thing, not just trust me. No. So everything's all explained, and then you go. So there's no standard buying piece of paper that says this is how you buy a house, but each paragraph will be explained to the client, so you shouldn't need to worry too much.
We never make. And other important thing, it's common practice that the buyers are the ones drafting the promissory contract. So the first version of the contract will always be the base of the client's intentions. Then it can be negotiated if anything, if the vendor doesn't agree with anything, and it's part of the process. But the first version of the contract is always drafted by us as the buyers and the buyer's lawyer, and in a bilingual or sometimes trilingual version of the contract, to be sure that it goes to our client, and only after the client says, I'm good with it, we will send it. We'll discuss any comments with the client, and once the client is comfortable, it is within the exact same terms that the deed will be signed, even if the deed is just in Portuguese and we don't have access to contracts made by the notaries. But if you're there in person, as David said, you are obliged to have a translator there. So
yeah, I mean, that sounds probably quite logical to actually not sign anything that you don't understand. Sorry, I think I disappeared for a second, but I'm back. Next question. David also replied in the chat, but I would like to ask as well, because I think it might be relevant to our viewers. Russell is asking, we would like a property with potential for partial renting out. However, I hear that Airbnb are becoming frowned upon. We are interested in, I have no idea how to pronounce, region.
Alentejo.
That one, exactly that one. Or
Yeah.
Caparica, for example. So David, could you please answer that?
Okay, so Sophia mentioned this earlier. So the government are trying to take the heat out of the increasing prices of the property market over the last few years, and basically are trying to take action against a problem that many countries are facing, which is that the sort of local population can't afford housing anymore, and that the richer reinvest and reinvest and reinvest, and therefore, you know, first-time buyers are getting priced out of the market. So what Portugal has done over the last few months is try to bring in some changes to the law that will cool down the market. And one of those things is that they're trying to make it difficult for people to buy a property, put it on Airbnb, for example, and obtain an AL license, is what we call it here. So it's a license for short-term rentals. So they're trying to slow down that market and ask people to rent long-term rather than short-term to provide housing. So there's a brand new law just come in now. As Sophia said earlier, it doesn't apply to villas. So if Russell was going to decide to buy a villa and rent one of the rooms, I believe if that's his home, that's absolutely fine. That wouldn't be restrictive in terms of getting the license. And also, if on his question, he mentioned maybe an outbuilding or something on the premises. So from what I read just today, and obviously it's all just coming out right now, that the new changes the government are doing, then what I read today, it said if it's part of your residence, then you are excluded from the issues of as in you can rent it out without difficulty of getting the AL license. So I believe that's okay. They're not trying to stop people buying here. And obviously what Russell's plan is to rent, have a granny flat or something on inside the plot. That's absolutely fine. But they're just trying to slow down people buying 5 apartments in Lisbon for Airbnb when the locals can't afford to buy or rent. And this is a problem in New York right now. And obviously in New York, if people are following the headlines there, they have said no to all Airbnbs, so that's a bit of a nightmare. But Portugal's just trying at the moment to see what options they can come up with just to try and protect, or at least give hope to the younger generation in being able to afford new properties.
Okay. Another question is for Sophia. What are the current rules on golden visa, like the very popular topic for permanent residency?
Yeah. This is the $1 million question, as we usually say, or in this case, the €1 million question. Right now, the rules are still the same. The new package deal of legislation has not entered into force. However, when is expected to enter into force, it's expected to come along any day now and to be approved. The most common way to get a golden visa through the €500,000 investment will not be there anymore. All the other ones will be. So through Golden Visa, you'll be able to make investment funds, creating companies and creating permanent jobs in Portugal. You'll be able to get a Golden Visa by that mean, not through the €500,000 investment that usually was made. And from our experience was the most seeked for because you would be investing in something that you could use, and the investment funds and other ways are not quite that beneficial for someone. So for now, that's all there is inside on the table.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sophia. We've got time for a few more questions. There's another one for George. Russell is asking, in the UK, our money is only protected up to £85,000 in the banks. So this means that any UK house sale money will need to be split. Does this make any smart currency contract more difficult?
No, not at all. So obviously the 85,000 is referring to the financial services compensation scheme. Essentially, if the bank goes bust, you're only protected up to 85,000. So no, obviously, if you've got a contract with smart currency or you want to use smart currency, you can fund your account here from multiple accounts. So it doesn't have to all come from one place. So you can fund it. If your money's split, you can fund it from different bank accounts. And obviously, importantly, going back to an earlier point raised on fund protection here, we are not limited to that same 85,000. So because we operate with the FCA's authorization, we have no cap. So the segregated client accounts are fully protected. So it means you could fund it from multiple bank accounts, and then your full balance would be protected with smart currency.
Great. That sounds really good. Okay, great. David, can you help find Portuguese schools, as that would determine where we would settle? That is also a question from Russell.
Yes, that's what we do all the time. So we're never really selling property. We're always going around doing strange things like that. So, for example, like I live in Villamora, and here we have the Colegio Internacional, the international school. So the international school in Villamora is a private school. You have to pay, and the school is split into two: a Portuguese curriculum and an English curriculum. So if people relocated here with children and they're at the age, maybe 10, 11, 12, where they feel that they want their children to continue the English curriculum, then that's not a problem. And I have a contact at the school. I ring her and say, I've got a client who's interested in joining the school. Can I bring them up to 11 o'clock tomorrow? And we go, and then they get a tour of the school. So that's absolutely fine. If your children are younger, maybe sort of 5, 6, 7, you can probably put them into the Portuguese state school. And that's absolutely fine as well. And I've got good friends who've got children there, and the teachers are bilingual, so absolutely fine as well. I look back now, and because my children are at a private school and I pay the fees, and I think, really, should I bother? Because the public schools are fantastic, good facilities, nice parking. So I've made my bed, I'll lie in it now, no problem. But the reality is, if a client comes out and he says we need to look at the schools, then no problem. And if they want to drop me an email, I can tell you, all the different schools, the private schools, and the public schools. The private schools were struggling to cope because they were, again, after COVID, everybody came over, relocated, and it was waiting list trying to get into some of the schools. But now we've had 3 or 4 new private schools open in the central Algarve area and throughout the Algarve. So it took a while for the infrastructure to catch up, but now it is not a problem. And yes, we will take a client to the school. And we do everything basically because we know, you've either got to pick up a book and start brand new and try and research everything, which is sort of thing I like to do that. But then I'll take forever reading about it, and I enjoy that. But the truth of the matter is, if you come and just ask us, we can make that a lot easier. Yeah. And get in the front door. And sometimes we can actually influence the schools to take people on as well if we can, because we know the directors. So sometimes that helps as well, just to get people in.
And sometimes your kids might go to the same school as David's kids.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I forget who are clients and who are friends now. It's a big combination.
Yeah, so it's both the school and the friendship in the same deal. Okay, great. Thank you, David. So another question for you, actually. Lawrence is asking, which locations still represent good value for money, either coastal or rural?
Well, good value for money is probably going to be coastal. So the more inland you go, then the better value, perceived value you get. Obviously, normally closer to the sea, the prices are high. Arguably, a better investment over the long term. The balance, if a client said to me, if I said, "Oh, look, if you go 1 hour inland, you can get a property that's 4-bedroom." May not even have a pool because they don't necessarily build for non-residents or tourism. So probably may not have a swimming pool. So it might be a 4-bedroom farmhouse with 5,000 square meters of land, and maybe you get that for 150,000 euros. So arguably, in answer to the question, that's better value. But if a year later the same client asked me to sell it, I don't know if I'd better sell it, because it's tricky, because not many people want that. So there's the perception of what's better value for me compared to, is it a good use of my money? So it is a sort of a balancing act, trying to get the things right. But more inland and the further north you go, before you get to Porto, then you get the cheaper prices around Coimbra and that sort of area. It's really, really cheap. But you've just got to ask yourself, will my life's circumstances change in 5 years? And if I want to sell it, is this an area that's desirable enough to sell it easily and quickly? And that's, so sometimes paying a little bit more to be in a location where there's higher demand is a more sensible idea.
Okay, great. Right. Thank you so much, everyone. This is just about what we have time for today. Sadly, it's already 5:30. But thank you so much, George, David, and Sophia, for giving us all sorts of tips and sharing your knowledge today with us. And thank you to all the people that joined us today and watched us live. I really apologize again that Chris couldn't actually be with us this webinar. He is an amazing host, and I'm really sad that his internet just decided not to work today. But well, we got it in the end. So just to let you know, guys, we really strongly recommend you get in touch with David, Sophia, and George directly to discuss your requirements in detail. And we will send you an email tomorrow with the details, so you'll be able to get in touch with them, as well as the video on demand for this webinar, so you'll be able to watch it again as well. And before we finish, I'd like to say thank you so much, everyone, again, and happy property hunting. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.